Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we'll discuss chapter 8 from First Flight book, Class 10 English, The Sermon at Benares. So, it is a powerful and moving story from the life of Gautama Buddha that teaches the universality of suffering and the path to peace. Let's begin. First, we have certain activities at our hands. So, the first one is, what is a sermon? So, sermon is a serious talk on moral or religious topics given by either a priest or a monk or some religious teacher. So, its purpose is to teach us or teach the people how to behave or how to live a good life. So, how it is different from a lecture or a talk? So, lecture differs in the sense that it is mainly an academic or educational speech given by lecturers, professors, experts on this subject. So it is based on certain topics. Just like sermon is based on religious topics, though it goes on philosophical also, it is certainly religious. And lecture, on the other hand, is based on topics, the subject topics, economics, biology, chemistry, physics, all those things. So talk, what is talk? Talk is it is basically a conversation between two people. So it is simple, it is personal, it is informal, and you don't use big words while talking to others. So the topic also can be anything, leading from science or the household chores, anything like that, and even gossip. So, talk is something informal between two people or more than two people, but where the restrictions of formality is not present. So, the next one. They are asking whether we have used sermon in a negative way. Have people used sermon, the word sermon, in a negative way? You can say yes. Sometimes people use sermon jokingly or negatively to tease someone who gives too much advice or who scolds them. For example, here comes dad. He's going to give me a sermon on how I have been watching TV for so long that it is rotting my brain. So someone whose speech we are not ready to hear or we think is boring or annoying, we can call it as a sermon. So next question. Find out the meanings of the words and phrases given in the box, and we have to find the meanings and of the phrases given in the box. So for this, we are going to check out this table. So if you see, afflicted with means suffering from some kind of disease or some sadness or some trouble. So for example, you can say he was afflicted with fever, he was afflicted with chickenpox, something you can mention a disease. Next one is to be composed. So composed means to stay calm and collected and be controlled and not showing any emotions. So you can, for example, you can say even in trouble she remained composed. Next is desolation. Desolation means the feeling of deep sadness or loneliness. Sometimes it kind of like empty or destroyed. So the news left him in complete desolation. Can you even mention the movie Desolation of Smog, Lord of the Rings? So it was the destruction of the Smog the dragon. So next one, lamentation. Lamentation, you can say that it is kind of a deep sorrow or crying or moaning. For example, you can say loud lamentation was heard at the funeral. You can say like bellowing with pain. So those things you can mention. Next one is procure. Procure means to obtain or get something, especially with extreme difficulty. Like you are getting like minerals from mines and ores. So that is called procuring. Mostly that is used for those kind of sentences like we procure gold from the mines, from the ores. So she managed to procure rare books for her project. So rare means it's kind of hard to find them, but she eventually found them. So it is something kind of takes a lot of effort on your part to get it. Next one, to subject to. So to be likely to experience something, especially unpleasant things. So the prices are subject to change. He was subjected to torture. Prisoner was subjected to torture. So those things comes under this. So now we'll go back to the next question. Have you heard of the Sermon on the Mount? Who delivered it, and who do you think delivered a sermon at Benares? So we know, actually you have already probably learnt the lesson. So we can go directly into the answer itself. So the Sermon on Mount is a famous collection of teachings delivered by Jesus Christ. So it appears in the Gospel of Matthew in the Bible. So it includes teachings like beatitudes, guidance, love, forgiveness, humility, and compassion. So the Sermon at Benares, on the other hand, is called the first sermon or Dharmachakra Pravartan, which was delivered by Gautama Buddha. After attaining enlightenment in Bodh Gaya, he went to Sarnath near Banaras, the current Varanasi, and taught 4 noble paths, truths, and the eightfold path to his 5 disciples. So that is what Sermon at Banaras means. So now we will go into the chapter. So the Sermon at Banaras is a powerful and moving story adapted from an excerpt taken from Betty Renshaw's Values and Voices, a college reader from 1975. So it offers deep insights from the life of Gautama Buddha and teaches us about the universality of suffering. Gautama Buddha was born as a prince Siddhartha. So protected from sorrow until he first witnessed sickness at old age and death, he was completely oblivious to all these things. He was a pampered prince in a country. So disturbed by these sights, after viewing them one day, he left his royal life in search of truth about life. After years of meditation beneath the Bodhi tree, he attained enlightenment and began to teach. So this chapter narrates the deeply emotional story of Kisa Gautami. Kisa Gautami, a mother whose son dies. And he was her only son also. In her grief, she seeks medicine to bring him back to life, thinking she can revive him back from death. So when she approaches Buddha for the medicine, he instructs her to collect mustard seeds from a house, any house that she can go to. So any house where there has been no death. So there should be no death in that house. So as she goes door to door, she realizes that every house has seen a death. The family has faced some or the other loss, and that death is universal. So through this awakening, Kisa Gautami understands that her sorrow is not hers alone. And then Buddha explains her that life is short and filled with suffering, and no one can escape death. So true peace comes when we realize our grief and release it and accept the realities of life and cultivate inner calm. So this is the part. Now we'll go to the comprehension, that is thinking about the text. So the first question. When her son dies, Kisa Gautami goes to house. So what does she ask for? So we can find the answer in page 112. So she asks every household for medicine to bring her dead son back to life. So she does not get it because she is so much in grief because her son had died. She is not able to comprehend that he has died and that she can still save him. So she is asking for medicine or money for medicine. And she does not get it because no medicine can revive anybody who is dead. and people have realized that she has lost her senses because of the grief. Next question. Kisa Gautami again goes from house to house after she speaks with Buddha. What does she ask for the second time around, and does she get it? And why not? Go to the same page, you can see. So, what she asks here is Buddha asks her to bring a mustard seed from the house where no one has ever died. So, the only condition he gave her is that no one should be dead in the house. No one should have died in the house. So, even then she is not able to comprehend that there is no house where everybody has survived. Some long lost grandfather would have died, grandmother, somebody would have died. So even that one, she has not yet come to her sense. So she immediately goes house to house and she tries to ask, give me a mustard seed, and whether the person, anybody in your house has died. So she does not get it because every family has experienced death and no such house exists. Third question. What does Kisa Gautami understand that second time that she failed to understand the first time? What was this? Was this what Buddha wanted her to understand? So she understands that death is universal and no one escapes from it. And this is what exactly Buddha wanted her to comprehend or understand. Because to realize that grief lessens only when we accept the nature of life. So that is what he was trying to teach her. He wanted to let the understanding come to her by its own self. He didn't want to just say it, because many people, they won't accept when you say something is wrong. When you find that they are doing something wrong, or they are not understanding something, or somebody is doing bad to you, when you're trying to say that to protect them, they will not accept. So we need to let humans come to their own decisions and come to their own conclusions. What we can do is we can just show them the path, that please try to ask this and get your answer. So if they are truthful, they will give back the answer. So same way, Gautama Buddha, what he did was he made sure that Kisa Gautami understood the concept of life by herself and not forcing the answer on her. So that when one comes to realization on their own self, it is much more powerful than getting advice from someone else. So that is what Buddha tried today. Next one. Why do you think Kisa Gautami understood this only the second time? In what way did Buddha change her understanding? So, her first search was driven by blind grief. So, during her second search, she observed others' sorrows and recognized that her suffering was not unique. So, first she was crying and she was asking for money. Everybody was looking at her weirdly and thinking that she has gone mad. So, she didn't notice that emotion from that. Second time around, she has calmed down and now she is asking for a mustard seed. She suddenly, when you ask somebody whether somebody has died in your house, they suddenly remember their memories and they start crying, or they feel sad, or they show other emotion. So now she could recognize those emotions on their faces. So that is what it became as a realization to her. So she recognized their suffering and understood that hers was not unique. And Buddha guided her to learn through experience and helping her see that that death is part of life and we should accept and move on. And that reality leads to peace. Next question. How do you usually understand the idea of selfishness? Do you agree with Kisa Gautami, and was she being selfish in her grief? So, selfishness usually means thinking of only one's own needs and feelings. So, yes, Kisa Gautami was realized what she was doing was selfish in her own grief because she focused only on her personal loss, and without recognizing others' loss, she was trying to make sure that her loss is much more important. So she has to understand that everybody suffers loss and everybody has gone through the same thing of death and or loss of somebody they loved. So she needs to recognize that. So her realization helped her move from personal sorrow to compassion and understanding for the life's truth. Next one, thinking about language. So in this text, some written in old-fashioned style. So we are going to write it in modern English. So give the medicine for thy child. Give you medicine for your child. Pray tell me. So it means please tell me or could you please tell me. Kisa repaired to the Buddha. So Kisa went to Buddha or she approached Buddha. So there was no house, but someone had died in it. So there you can say that there wasn't a single house where no one had died. Kinsman. Kinsman means relatives or family members. Kin, you can mention. Mark. It means pay attention or notice this. Like listen to me, like that. Next one, we are using semicolon or dash to combine sentences. Instead of using and or but or and then. So all these words, instead of words, we can also use semicolon and dashes. So given there is a sentence that has 3 semicolons and we can put full stop and combine them into 3 separate sentences. For there is not any means by which those who have not been born can avoid dying. After reaching old age, there is death. So living beings are of such nature. So this is the sentence without any semicolons or dashes. And what they have asked, like which one has more rhythm or which one do you prefer as the better reading, for better reading. So we can say that the single sentence with semicolon flows more smoothly and sounds more philosophical because it is in one sentence and it does not give you a pause or different kind of pause. Like full stop stops your thought at that point. A semicolon means it is still continuing. So see 3 simple sentences might be easier to understand, but they are more or less they are abrupt. They end after the full stop. And the semicolon one is much more poetic and connected, and it sounds also more philosophical in nature if you read it. Next one, speaking exercise. So what they have asked is, they have asked us to read the following text and understand whether we have found better ways to cope with grief or whether Buddha's teaching is correct or not. So the first one is a guide to coping with death of a loved one. In this text, the summary is, it explains that grief is a natural response to loss and describes the common emotions of people that they experience, such as sadness, anger, guilt, anxiety, loneliness, fatigue, disbelief. So all these things are common emotions for a person in grief. So it shows that people grieve differently also. So because each one is not the same. And these feelings may appear in different form. Say, for example, one person who gets really, really angry, they may shout, and another person might actually hit someone. Another person might break things. And someone who is really angry can be really quiet also because they have control over their anger. So each person emotes differently, in a different way. So the text also gives practical suggestions on how to support someone who is grieving. So you have to be patient with them. You have to reach out with care and allow them to express themselves in their own way, because grieving is something that is personal to them. And if you are going to provide support to them, you have to make sure that they come outside of that shell on their own time, in their own way. we can't force them to come out of it because we have not experienced that loss. They have. So what we have to do is we have to just provide support and show them that you are there, that you are present when they need it. So that is what that paragraph is about. Next one is Good Grief by Amitai Etizoyani. So what this paragraph tells about is, it's a personal reflection that challenges the idea that grief must follow specific stages. Etizoyani shares his own losses, first his wife, then his adult son, and explains that grief does not follow rules. So he explains that it does not follow the list as anger, sorrow, or confusion. Anything may come in any order. So he finds the comfort in the advice that do not ask why, but what. Meaning that focus should be on what grieving people can do to one another, and mutual support, staying busy, caring for each other, and looking after the surviving family members become their way of coping. So you cannot be selfish in your own grief. That is what they are trying to say. You have to check for the other surviving members of the family. For example, if a mother lost her husband, she should not sit and grieve for a long time because she has to take care of the children who are expecting her to take care of them because they are still young and they need their mother. They have already lost one parent. They cannot lose another parent to grief. So we must be able to control ourselves and move on so that we have to live for the children. So that is what a mother should think about, or any spouse or any partner. The parent, surviving parent, they have to do that because the surviving people must also live and they are dependent on the other person. So we must think like that and proceed on life. So that is what the second paragraph is about. So we have been discussing this alongside with Gautama Buddha's. You can see we can compare the two approaches. That Buddha teaches understanding through the universality of death, while modern text focuses mostly on emotional expression and mutual support. Because in this, only Kisa Gautami was talking with Buddha and nobody else. And she came to the understanding all by herself. He was there to guide her, but not support her in any sense. But nowadays, modern system, they have a support system. They are asking for family support and everything. And you can explain whether these methods differ or complement or whether they are good or bad. You can provide some points. Next point you can take as a focused viewpoint. Whether you think that Buddha's idea hold meaning today or whether modern psychology is what is important now. You can think about it and give your answer. So you have to support it 2 or 3 examples. You can ask certain people of how they feel, or you can take any cases, study cases from newspaper or articles where the grieved person has written an article and how they coped with it and what were the methods that they were taking, and all those things you can take from newspaper articles or something. Next is the writing exercise. So in writing exercise, they have given you 3 topics and they have asked you to choose any one and write 3 paragraphs about them. So for 3 paragraphs, you can separate them as introduction, examples, and conclusion. So what you can write is, you can introduce the topic and briefly explain why it is important. Okay. Next one, you can give examples or experiences from your life and ideas from the text, the before text or the Gautama Buddha text, or your own any experience that you have that you can mention, and you can develop that main point. Then you can conclude. You can conclude with what you have learned and what lesson you have learned and why the idea matters and how it applies to real life. Any one idea, how it applies to real life can add. Then you can also use the ideas from Sermon from Banaras. For any tips, you can take from that and you can add to this. You can write about how people learn to heal, to see themselves differently, and how they share experiences and wisdoms do they help. and how personal struggles or self awareness shape the behavior. So, this will all make the writing relatable and meaningful. So, you can write like that. Next one, they have given a small poem. So, what is the summary of that is the speaker explains that joy and sorrow are deeply connected and not opposite forces. So, joy is simply revealed because both come from the same emotional depth within us. So, joy is simply sorrow revealed because both come from the same emotional depth within us. So, the greater our sorrow, the more capacity we have for joy. So, both are equal, he is saying. And just as the cup is shaped by fire and music comes from wood carved by knives, when we feel joy, it often comes from a place where that has caused us sorrow also. So when we feel sorrow, it also has something that brought us joy. So he is saying that both the things coexist and we have to just pick which is good for us. So neither emotion is greater than the other. So they are inseparable companions arriving together in different moments of life. So he is saying that both are in the same place and we are choosing what to express at that time. So you are having sadness in your life means that does not mean you don't have joy. It means joy is just inside, you have to bring it outside. So just like they are saying, like there is two knives in one handle. So same way, you are having both the joy and sorrow in one place and you are just expressing one now. So there is still joy inside. So when you put back sadness, joy will come out. So that is what he is trying to reveal here. So this brings to the end of our prose. So in conclusion, we can tell that Kisa Gautami really realizes that the universal truth of death comes to every family and no one can escape loss. So through her search for the mustard seed from a house untouched by death, she learns that her grief is not unique but part of human condition. So this understanding frees her from the blind sorrow and helps her accept the law of life. So Buddha's teaching guides her towards wisdom. True peace comes not from clinging to suffering and pain, but recognizing that all living beings are subject to death, and only letting go of this selfish grief can one find compassion and calmness. Okay, now we'll go to the poetry section. So for the poetry section, we have a poem called For Anne Gregory by William Butler Yeats. So what this poem is about is, this poem presents a conversation between a young woman and an older, wiser voice, or a man. The speaker tells the young woman that men admire her for not who she is, but for her beautiful yellow hair. She replies that she can simply dye it some other color so that they will not look at the color anymore and they will only look at her true self instead. However, the old man still explains her that love is often influenced by outward beauty and only God is capable of loving someone purely for who they are and without being influenced by any physical appearance. So he is saying all humans do first look at the outer appearance before speaking, talking, or trying to engage in a conversation. So first impression is always outward expressions. So he's saying that only God can love you for who you are yourself. So let us go to the comprehension. So what does the young man mean by great honey-colored ramparts at your ear, and what does he say that young men are thrown into despair by them? So what does he mean by that? So the girl in question, the woman of the poem, she has great honey colored hair. So it forms as ramparts on her ears, like she has a bob cut. So it encircles her whole face like a frame. So, so the woman's beautiful hair is compared to golden walls or defenses. So young men are thrown into despair means because her beauty is so striking that it overwhelms them and makes them feel like they cannot win her love. They are desperate to win her love. Second question. What color is the woman's hair and what does she say she can change it to and why would she want to do so? So her actual hair color is yellow, honey colored. And she says that she can dye it brown, black or carrot. Carrot in the sense orange color. So she wants to do this so that the young men will love her for who she truly is and not just for her outer beauty. Next question. Objects are qualities which make them desirable. Can you think of some objects, a car, a dress, and what are its qualities? And imagine you're selling an object. So, can think that every object has some or the other quality in them. So, what qualities we can emphasize is, for example, a car. You can say when you're selling a car, you can say it has good mileage. It is a new model, recent model. You can mention the style and the cleanliness, quality of it, and those things you can mention. In case of a phone means you can say that the performance is still good, the CPU is still running very good, you can mention. Then you can mention the camera quality, it is very good sir, like that you can mention. And you can mention the storage capacity, how much RAM is there, all those things you can mention. And the model, design model, say a new model or a previous year model, you can mention that. Then for dress, what you will say for dress? You can say it is the comfort level of the dress or the size or the fabric quality. What fabric quality is this, of like cotton or high synthetic or something like that. And the color. Color should be appealing. Something pastel colors or muted colors or beige or burgundy or something like that. You can mention the rich colors. Those things you can mention. These are all the qualities of an object that you have to emphasize in order to sell them, in order for them to be desirable. Next question. What about people? Do we love others because we like their qualities or whether physical or mental or for themselves alone? So they are asking, how do we like people? So often we do love people because of their qualities. Sometimes we like cousins or family members, we like them mostly because of their qualities, because we do not look at appearances for family members or friends. So we see their kindness, their intelligence, their humor. So we also see physical beauty when we are looking at others also. So, but deeper forms of loves come from parents' love for their children, or the love for your pet, or love for your partner, those things. So it shows that it is possible to love someone for their own self, but beyond looks and abilities also. And people may seem more lovable than their behavior or personality or how they make us feel. So, but true love comes beyond those qualities and accepts the whole person. So, it is true that we can sometimes look beyond the outside experience and love the person for who they truly are. Next one. You have perhaps concluded that people are not objects to be valued or their qualities or riches. But let's ask the question, how can we separate the dancer from the dance? And it is possible to separate the person himself or herself from how the person looks, sounds or walks and so on. So it is possible, he is saying. Even though you may love a person beyond their looks, it does happen. So what happens during that? So has your relationship changed in what way? So it is difficult to completely separate the person from how they look, because that is part of them. So how they look, how they sound, how they act, because of these things, it shapes their experience with us. So, as people change physically or emotionally over the years, our relationship with them also changes. So, it may become stronger, it may become weak, it may differ because of personality changes or something. So, it is all based on your own experience. Whether you are that kind of person who looks at outward appearance and picks a person, or you don't look at it and you look only through the soul or the mind of the person. So it boils down to your personal choice. So, but for real connection, you should look beyond the surface. You should look beyond the outward appearance. So that brings us to the end of our chapter. So this poem suggests that appearance influences love, but real connection should be based on their inner self. So this concludes our chapter 8. So thank you for watching the video. For any queries or comments, please contact us at goastnow.com and Goast Now Academy. I'm sorry. So you can feel free to drop a comment below too. So thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.